Welcome to the Old Fashion Masonic Podcast, where we talk all things Freemasons while drinking an old fashioned. I'm Brian.
And I'm Mike.
You guys remember Mike from episode 1. Mike was the first dude we ever put on a podcast back when it was really bad. We were in a dungeon, the camera's on us, our faces red. We had done 3 or 4 that day. We were probably inebriated. We'd looked. It was awful. So the folks that have stayed with us since 1, thank you, because we sucked then. We are now like a 5 out of 10. So another year and a half will be a solid 6.
Yes. Just
like my wife calls me, I'm a solid 6. So, Mike, after all of that, introduce this accomplished soul that's in between us, and we'll figure out how we tricked him to come on the podcast.
Well, we have with us here Most Worshipful Doug Wilkinson.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So, we're about to tell you who Doug is and why he's got the Most Worshipful title. So, like we do with every start of the Old Fashion Masonic Podcast, we care more about the man rather than just the Mason. So, Doug, who is Doug the man, not the Mason? And don't forget your spouse, because it cost you a dress.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm a devoted Christian. As a man. My wife's been with me for 46 years, day after tomorrow, and the 17th of June. I'm a guy they call the older guy in the line, primarily because I'll be 68 Friday, and so I'm the oldest one in the line currently. And so I'm kind of the bib and overhaul guy, pretty laid back. Pretty plain Jane type guy. Okay, and that's kind of me. In fact, if they'll tell you that, he's the older guy, the bib and overhaul guy.
Perfect. Okay. So what you did though, you've also do you have any children?
Yes, I do. I have 3.
I'm saving you here now.
Oh, okay, yeah. Right. Oh, absolutely. Got to talk about the family and
we don't cut anything, so it's going to be on camera that he missed it.
That's right. My wife, we just mentioned Kaylina, 46 years. I have 3 children. My oldest son, Brady, who is welds for me in the business, one of the businesses I'm in. My middle daughter was an All-American at the University of Nebraska. Still works there. And
All-American in what?
In track.
Oh,
she threw the javelin in Kansas and received scholarship from the University of Nebraska.
She threw it all the way to Nebraska.
Went all the way to Nebraska.
That is an arm.
Interesting, because K-State didn't think that she would be able to make it in the Big 12. Ironically, she held the Big 12 record for about 4 or 5 seasons and won 3 Big 12 titles in the javelin.
Oh my gosh! Somebody in the recruiting department said, "What did
said
you
what?
do?"
And ironically, after she won her first one and beat the girl that was signed ahead of her in Kansas, the first coach to congratulate her was that coach that didn't think she would be able to compete.
You know what? Good for that person.
Right.
So another thing you've left out.
Son, I have a youngest son. I have a youngest son who works for Burns & McDonald in Kansas City.
Okay.
And is in the process of investigating Masonry, determining whether or not he wants to become a Mason.
Oh, that's going to be exciting.
Cool. Yeah.
So your daughter's an athlete. So we get a bio before. So just in case folks kind of forget some things or we want to poke and prod. So let me see tell me what I've got wrong here. You were a pretty good athlete in school. When you were in school at the time, they really didn't know how to deal with you. It's like, I don't know if he's just messing with us, if he's too smart to handle. But fast forward, we won't go into the details. Somebody took a flyer on you and said, you know what? Let's get him to a path where we can get him to come out and play some football.
Right.
So that was where did you start?
Actually, I started in the community that I went to, Belleville, Kansas, Belleville High School back then, and now it's a county school.
Yeah.
But it was Belleville High School, and I was a quick kid. I could get around pretty good, and a government teacher who knew a coach out in Dodge City, Kansas, at the Dodge City Community College. he said, I think this kid could play ball for you, and the rest is history. I went out there and played for Dodge City for 2 seasons for the Conquistadors. I was able to potentially move on. I met my wife of we just said 46 years here in a day or two, and I actually signed a letter of intent to play for Valparaiso University, which is in Indiana. Some of you know them as Valpo.
Valpo.
And my wife's father wouldn't let her go with me. She was at the time a student at Emporia Teachers College, Emporia State, as you know it now, and there was a coach there who when my wife's father wouldn't let her go with me to Indiana. So I decided, okay, well, I'll just stay in Kansas. And so I went to Emporia State for 4 hours because I was told.
I was going to say 15 minutes.
Yeah, about that. It could have been, because in 15 minutes I actually decided, but it took me till noon to call my dad and said I'm coming home.
Oh my gosh! He took my zinger away. I was going to zing the Grandmaster. So.
That's all right.
Oh, good. Okay, so that's a good
tells
lead.
You a little about
that's a good lead in.
So we've heard about Doug the Man. So walk us through your Masonic journey.
Okay. All right. That's kind of an interesting journey, probably not unlike others. But what happened in 1979, my grandfather was terminally ill, and he lived in southern Missouri. And so I went down to visit him, and I knew nothing about Masonry, absolutely nothing. But my grandfather handed me a ring, which I still have today, and he said, and I looked at it and I said, what is this? And he said, well, it's a Masonic ring. And I said, what's that? And he said, well, we're not going to get into that right now, but I need you to know that your father and his brother were the first generations of Wilkinsons to not be Masons. We missed a whole generation. And so he said, I'm not going to tell you what to do or anything other than I would ask you to investigate it and look into it.
Nice.
Interestingly enough, the business that I was in at the time, when I got back home on Monday, I was in my office and I walked into our maintenance shop and talked to a guy who later introduced me to Masonry, but his name was Lee Campbell. We called him Uncle Lee. He was an older guy. Excuse me. And I walked in the shop and I said, Uncle Lee, you ever heard of this outfit called the Masons? And he said, well, I might have. And I said, well, I'd like to know more about them. And he said, well, let me think on it. Well, then the next morning, I believe it was Tuesday, might have been Wednesday, there was a petition on my desk. And I seen that, so I went and I hunted him up, and because he had a little sticker on it, Lee, and I hunted him up, and he said, well, you want to know a little bit about the Masons, this is how you learn how to know more about the Masons. And so that happened to be in December. So in January, I petitioned the lodge, Belleville 129, and 2 weeks later, between that process, there was an investigating committee come to my home and talk to me, talk to my wife, and talk to me a little bit about Masonry, and it kind of was something I wanted to get involved in. And so 2 weeks after that, then I took my my first degree, the initiating, second degree 2 weeks later, and the third degree 2 weeks after that, which by that time was March 20th. So March 20th of 1980, I was raised as a Master Mason. And from there, Masonry intrigued me. I was a guy who wanted to know all I could know about the ritual. And so I actually started right away committing different degrees to memory. And over a period of time, I got proficient at it, I guess, enough to where I could go and do degree work not only in our lodge but in other lodges, and so I just took it from there. And over the years, I was, as in small lodges, you end up being master multiple times. My first master, I believe, was in 1985. First time I served as master.
Okay.
And
at Belleville.
At Belleville 129. Okay. Later, obviously, belonged to NARCA 349 and served as master there as well. The history with NARCA, why did I go to NARCA 349, was because my grandfather belonged to a lodge in Haddam, Kansas. The guy who turned me on to Masonry was the guy who belonged at Haddam, but that Haddam Lodge had consolidated, and what happened is part of them went in one part of the county to NARCA 349, the others went to Washington, Kansas, the lodge there. I chose to petition NARCA at that point in time, and then later from NARCA, I petitioned Marysville 91 because that's where the other part of Washington County went. And so I was trying to follow in my grandfather's footsteps is what I was trying to do there. And so over the years, to shorten this up some, because I've served multiple positions and offices, and I was district deputy under Jeff Most Worshipful Souter, and then took some time away from being district deputy.
Yeah, he'll wear you out.
Yeah. And anyway, and fast forward through to the Grand Line when I was my first, besides district deputy, my first opportunity in the line was Grand Junior Steward for Most Worshipful Morrow. And I followed them guys all around.
Nice.
And then the rest is history. Obviously, I was, I don't know how, but appointed Grand Senior Deacon, and of course we're here today. I'm now the Grand Master, the 154th Grand Master.
So for those who didn't pick up, he is the current Grand Master from basically March of 2024 through mid-March of 2025. That's how that works in this jurisdiction.
Right.
Any other appended bodies you're involved in?
I'm now. I'll tell you a little. Going back, let's go backward just a little bit. In the 80s, I actually went all the way through full form of the York Rite, and in fact was ready to cross the sands, and backed out, and decided I want to learn. I want to learn more about Blue Lodge and the ritual. That's what I started out to do.
Yep.
So it looked to me like this was going to get pretty busy, and so I suspended out non-payment of dues from the York Rite. And here a few years ago, Most Worshipful Rob McClarty.
You saw him on a previous episode.
He and I had a discussion about getting restored, getting back going again. And so I thought, yeah, that's the right thing to do, because as we get into some other topics potentially here,
Yep.
I want to be associated with all of our bodies, and so I got restored there, and then this past year went through the Scottish Rite. Here at Wichita, Kansas, went through that, and I will add that's for those of you who have never done that. You owe yourself a trip down that lane, because that's one of the, and the York Rite as well. But it's a beautiful part of Masonry.
So let me describe this as somebody who's went through both.
Okay.
Here's how I describe it to outsiders. So tell me how flawed this is. The Scottish Rite has the most beautiful pageantry and just awesome content. It's beautiful. The York Rite, to me, because when I went through aging members and just they didn't have a lot of, so they didn't have the pageantry of the Scottish Rite, but the content hit me there a different way as a Christian man.
Yeah.
And you find out some stuff that maybe was left out when you went through the Blue Lodge. So we'll just leave that. So is that a fair description?
That's a very fair description. In fact, I'm on record of stating, I spoke that evening to the crowd and that were there, and my fellow candidates that went through, that it was probably the most beautiful and rewarding experience I've had in 44 years.
Boom, plug for both bodies. Look what we just did here.
44 years of Masonry. And then a year ago, this last August, at our Unity Festival, I became a Shriner.
Nice.
And of the Isis Temple in Salina.
Okay.
And so, yes, I'm part of all the bodies.
Nice. Good.
Okay.
Nice recap. So, one thing only. If you were to be master of your lodge again next year, what one thing would you do different than you had done prior when you were masters? Like, I wish I would have done this, or now that I know this, I would definitely do this. One thing at your lodge level, what's the one thing you do different?
The one thing that I would do different actually probably doesn't have anything to do with the lodge. Indirectly.
He's a Grand Master. He's turning this on me, and I can't correct him.
Okay. But you asked me what it'd be.
I did.
And what it'd be is to advance our meal portion, the first hour of our meeting, we get together, we have a meal.
Yeah.
But where I think we went wrong, and that I would do again if I were master again, is I would have a program for the ladies to continue on while we were conducting our business meeting.
Okay, so let me walk that through.
That's-
So we would all eat together before.
Yep.
Husbands and wives, spouses, significant others, whatever we call it in today's world. And Masons would go to a meeting. There would be another sort of program for the significant others.
The women could go enjoy their
Yep.
time together. They could play bingo, play cards. They could do a lot of things. They could
That's
also.
easy to do.
It's
Yeah,
easy to
that's
do,
a great
and
idea.
what it does that would help all lodges. It would improve your attendance, because if the significant other has something to do with you, you're probably going to be a little more successful than if it's just you going by yourself and she's got a.
I could argue that. Well, especially in as long as we've been married, I didn't have an arranged marriage. I got married because I chose to.
That's right.
Or I tricked my wife to. However, we'll go with it. But I enjoy doing stuff with my spouse as well, so I could see where some people might enjoy that. So
what you're talking about your Masonic journey, and you've talked about being on the line. What Grand Lodge position do you think would be the most rewarding for Masons?
There is only one. There is only one position that was the most rewarding for me, and one I would like to do over if I get selected, and that is District Deputy Grand Master. That is the most rewarding position in Masonry today, and I'm probably you're going to get a lot of people calling and say this guy's crazy.
Nope, he's not crazy.
But I'm going to tell you, it's also not necessarily. It's sometimes overlooked. And these guys that are District Deputy Grand Masters, there's so much fullness from Masonry that you can get in that position. And I would encourage, if you ever get the opportunity to serve in that role, for you to be able to do that, because it is fulfilling. You learn a lot about your brothers. You learn a lot about function of other lodges.
Yep.
And most importantly, you can get yourself in a role where you can help them.
absolutely, yeah, I agree. Of my Grand Lodge appointments, hands down, not even close, because you got to be a true liaison. You come in for your official visit, but when you go there, you get to hang out and hey, what do you think the Grand Master would want to see? Well, I'd probably do this because I think this is what he's talking about. And it really is kind of a cool thing. One meeting's what you call pressure, and it's no pressure, because you fill out a little report, but if you go over the report with them, they're never surprised. So,
well, one of the things, can I add something to that?
You're the Grand Master.
One of the things that I encourage the district deputies to do before you go in with the collar and the apron, go in with the white apron.
Yep.
Get to know your brothers on the level, because that's who we are as Masons. Yep. We're all Masons. We're on the level. Collars, all that stuff. That's here and there.
Yep.
But you go in and learn your lodge, set with them, and be a brother, and you will be first of all, it's fulfilling. And you will have established a relationship that you will never regret.
Yep.
I'll tell you how I learned that, if I may.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yep.
You've
got until March of 2025.
When I made a visit to a lodge that had a horrible experience with a district deputy,
Mm-hmm.
and when I walked in the lodge, I had my case with me, and I was met practically the minute I got inside the door, and they said, "Well, who are you, and how long are you going to be here, and what do you want?" And I said, "Well, you should know who you are, who I am, and I wrote you a letter and all this, and also emailed and all that." And I stopped for a minute, and I thought, okay, here's what we're going to do.
You read the room.
I went out picked my case up, walked out of the room. I went to my car, put it away, and come back in, put on an apron. And today I'm a member of that lodge.
Nice.
but it's that kind of relationship that you build that fulfills that district deputy role.
I agree.
Okay.
So, you've got lots of goals that you'd like to see for Kansas, and it's not just a year, none of that thing. So I know how that works. But if you have one thing, if I'd say I have the magic wand of Masonry and you can only get one thing accomplished during this term as Grand Master, what's the one thing without a semicolon and then a comma, that you'd like to be able to get accomplished this year? What's your like number one goal?
Right. In my mind, my number one goal is to bring all Masons together. Somehow over the years, we just talked about appended bodies earlier, but one thing I think we forget is that we are all Masons and we're all on the level. And one thing that I don't think we all completely understand, but we're learning, is that we can be more successful as one than trying to be a whole bunch of different people and a whole bunch of different approaches to how we want to proceed. So my number one goal is to unify us and bring us together.
I like it.
Nice.
I like it.
So, since you've been a Mason, what other Grand Master has moved the needle the most for you?
That's interesting, because this will surprise you.
Oh,
This will
I
surprise
love
you.
surprises.
This will surprise you, and I think that this goes back to Most Worshipful Souter, and his vision, because I believe he pioneered, along with others, our relationship with Prince Hall Masonry, and I believe that is significant on our others.
I agree. That's fair. So I talked to Most Worshipful Bob Talbot before we were going to film, and he reminded me that he is the best looking living past Grand Master of Kansas, and I said I don't want to debate that again. Would you agree or disagree?
He's best looking?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know.
That's good enough, Bob. So shots fired. That's not the real question. So this is
definitely not the tallest.
He's definitely not the tallest. Either would I be. That'd be terrible. So serious question.
Okay.
Why do you think more men aren't joining Masonry today?
Awareness.
Pretty simple.
I mean,
it's
just think about something for a minute. How many guys do you know that talk about Masonry?
Just
Besides us.
just a few.
Okay. Besides
and amongst
us.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
the people we
besides
know
us.
know that
Yeah.
we're Masons,
Yeah.
but right.
So awareness. If you're not aware of something, probably you don't.
So we've done a bad marketing job in its. I mean, not like marketing what people would say.
No,
oh my God, Byrd, you're going to talk about recruiting. No, the marketing of
No. It's not.
We're the brand.
It's
Can we
us.
argue that?
Yeah,
We're the brand.
We're the brand.
It's not that damn square and compass.
Right.
It's
no,
not
we're
just
the brand.
that,
We're the
it's
brothers.
How we
We're-
carry
we're-
ourselves
Yeah.
out in the public. I mean,
because good Masons are distinguished.
yes, sir.
They should, yeah. And most people say that, and I'm glad that you said it, because we get this deal like, oh, Byrd or Russ or Mike, they're doing this elitist thing. No, I think Masonry should be elite, and elite doesn't have anything to do with money. Elite is character to me.
That's right.
And
Absolutely.
I think that you have to have elite. You should have elite character to be a Mason. If you're going to rock the square and compass, it's not a money thing. So again, for all you guys that are still thinking it's a money thing, get off of that. I got a whole nother issue with that anyway. But elite is character. And the better character people we have, the more people say, that guy, look at those dudes, I want to be part of that. Yeah. And we've missed the mark in some areas.
And
I
check
wanna
the
be like
ego
that.
and check the ego at the door.
Check the
right.
dudes and egos.
That's right.
Right.
Exactly.
So, do you think that not keeping up with dues has kind of tarnished our brand?
Well, let me ask a question. What do you mean by keeping up with dues?
So, you were raised in what year? 1980?
1980.
In 1980s, the dues were what?
About $12.
$12.
20 maybe. Yeah.
20. So I will tell you, like at Midian in 1980, the dues then were more than current value dollars today. Mm-hmm. So, like, basically not moving it up with inflation.
Right. So you're talking about moving dues up.
Yes.
Okay. Well, again, you're probably not going to like my answer, but my answer is this: that's a lodge decision, and the lodge has to determine beyond per capita what they need to collect in order to stay functional.
Are they scared to raise dues? Is that why? Because they're afraid to lose members over
Well,
this?
I think that in some cases they are, but you have to remember something as a lodge, and I belong to lodges that charge different
right.
fees, some for different reasons. But I honestly believe that there probably is lodges who think, well, if I go up $10 or go up $20 or whatever, then probably we're going to lose membership. That's not true. If a brother is seeking and receiving value from our fraternity, then what does the dues really have to do with what you're getting for the money?
Right.
Yes.
I mean, can we agree?
No, it's got to be a value proposition.
It's a value-added proposition.
Commodity is time is the most precious commodity we have. We can all make money. We can't make more time, right? People say, well, you can make time for this. You guys all know what I mean. So if we're asking somebody for their most precious commodity, we need to be giving them some sort of a perceived value or a value add.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
And I think we don't do a great job of that. What was okay in 1980 doesn't excite the members in 2024.
Right.
Fair?
No, agreed.
So,
Agreed.
okay. So before we get to the most important question of the podcast, I want to allow you to get on the soapbox because we had a discussion before. Mike, you're unaware of this. So we had a long telephone conversation before this episode aired. And I've known that I also knew a little bit about this because we've got a pulse in Kansas Masonry. We talk to a lot of people. One thing that you're doing that you confirmed with me on a telephone conversation that I think is utterly amazing. And I'm a little embarrassed that when I was a master, I didn't do a better job of this. So, Mike, let me tell you what he's doing. He is going after all of our NPDs, all of our people that have left, and I don't know the time frame. He's like, you know what? We're not going to worry about the new guys yet. We'll let the lodges deal with this. We need to focus on why did all these other guys leave? I'm going to divvy this up, and you're going to make phone calls, dudes, and we're going to figure out what in the hell is going on. Now, add to that, I made up most of that. I embellished some of it.
Well, but actually, that's pretty close to what we talked about.
Yeah, all right.
So,
Okay.
yeah, and you want...
Yeah.
Go for it.
All right. Well, you'll be receiving, both of you, and all.
Whoa, we paid our dues. What's going on?
You're going to be receiving communication from me within a matter of days that this call campaign will begin on the 25th of June. And what we've done is we've went back for 5 years, and we've selected a number of suspended non-payment of dues and demits, and we've selected the right brothers. We've vetted some brothers that are going to be making these calls, and we're going to reach out to a whole bunch of guys. And we're going to start in areas 1, 2, and 4. And Pike's playing a pretty large role in this. These guys probably didn't know that, but some of our guys that have volunteered to go out there and ask these brothers important questions. One of the most important is, why did you leave us? What did we not do to keep you interested and staying on board with us, or what happened, and so I think that's important that we go back and investigate, because we're doing a little better job with retention. I'm not gonna say we're not, but I don't think we're doing a good enough job talking to the brothers who once had faith in us, enough faith to complete all 3 degrees, become Master Masons, and then leave us. And we have a responsibility. Each Master of the Lodge, actually, if you go back and look, has a responsibility to reach out to talk to these brothers prior to the suspension of non-payment of dues. The demit is somewhat clear because they may write that, but not in the suspension. And what I've learned before starting this endeavor was most of the people I've talked to, well, they didn't care. Nobody called me when I didn't pay. Nobody said, well, why didn't you pay?
I felt like a number.
Yeah. And I cited an example today. I had an area meeting today that I was at, and I cited an example of a brother who went suspended for non-payment of dues at a lodge. And when I learned about it, I took this list. There was a list of suspended non-payment of dues, and I personally wrote the lodge a check for all those brothers. And I said, I'm gonna pay their dues, and we're gonna see if they have an interest in staying with us. This was just prior to suspension, and one of the brothers that I paid, we sent a note, and the secretary said at that particular time, Doug Wilkinson paid your dues, and so you're current. You're going to be able to operate under current dues. Anyway, long story short, I got a note from that brother, and he said He said, I'm a school teacher, and my family fell on hard times, and I could not pay my dues.
But we'd have never known.
And we'd have never known. And to this day, and this has been several years ago now, this brother has never missed paying his dues since. But this is just one of what could be hundreds of examples out there of what we're missing.
But here's the other thing with that brother. Yeah. There may be a time where he's going to pay that forward. Yeah. And when you take the time to send a letter, right, that's the character of a person that just may perpetuate that good
exactly
deed, right?
Pay it forward.
Yep.
Exactly. But that's what, as Masons, and I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I think sometimes we forget. We forget.
We do.
Hey, we went to the work. This brother went to all this work to do this, and we all know what we had to go through to be raised. And
all
so
that time to get them in.
Right. Yep. And so here's all these brothers out there that once had enough confidence in us to go through all this. Why don't we have enough confidence in them to call them?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So that's a good. So the one thing you don't know about, we end every episode with what we call the most important question of the podcast. So up on the screen, you're going to see 4 things. And of these 4 things, one of them has to go forever. It was never invented. Okay? You see the anxiety.
Okay.
Okay. So we have basketball, football, baseball, and golf. And I'm actually going to take golf out of the way. I'm going to replace that with track and field. One of these things were never invented. Basketball, football, baseball, or track and field. That means that your daughter could have never thrown a javelin ever in her life.
I know my answer to this.
So I'm coming to you next. Which one has to go forever? It was never invented. Most worshipful.
All right.
And why?
And basketball.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to high five you right now.
Oh, see, that makes me sick, both of you guys.
And the reason why is because I can't walk and chew gum at the same time.
Okay, all right. Well, mine's definitely baseball. Too boring. Although they've sped the game up. Right. Yeah. I mean, I'll watch softball all day. I mean, that's a much faster game. So, most worshipful, thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming to the Old Fashion Masonic Podcast.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.